This is our second film in Phase 2 of Marvel's cinematic universe. Thor gets his first sequel in November, strangely, but I'll work with it. We get a new Marvel movie this week, and what did I think? Well, it has some problems, which are worth digging into, but nonetheless, it was damn entertaining. It was visually stunning, this movie. Holy crap. I watched the first Thor again in preparation for this one, and I can tell you, going from that film to this one, I think it's even bigger than the Avengers. It's like the scale in this movie is just so much more grand compared to any of the other Marvel films, I think. And it's amazing. The special effects and the production design, it's mind-blowing. Like, Marvel has clearly upped the budget of these Phase 2 films, and it shows. Just looking at Asgard and all the other realms, it's just, you can tell a lot of effort was put into this. You're pretty much assured some of the best CG and explosions you're gonna see on the silver screen when you walk into a theater to see any new Marvel movie now. And as cool as that all is, and it is pretty damn awesome in this movie, and it makes for a very entertaining ride. Effects aren't everything, and I think you can see this coming, what I'm about to say here, but yes, story. The story in this movie was disappointing. It got convoluted and it meandered. None of it seemed to matter. It's like the visuals took precedent over the storytelling. The way this movie began, I was impressed. I thought it looked better than I expected from the trailers. I thought I was in for something epic. The fantasy scenes on, like Asgard and the other realms, even some sci-fi elements were kind of thrown in there. All those scenes were just awesome. It felt like Game of Thrones or 300 at times, and this is directed by Alan Taylor, who I believe directed some Game of Thrones episodes. I mean, wow, it didn't even feel like a Marvel movie at some time. It totally felt like an entire world. But when it got to the parts that took place on Earth, it was okay. These were typically filled with dumb humor that just did not work for me. A lot of the jokes in this movie fell flat. There were a few, of course, that were kind of funny, but a lot of them it's just stupid stuff. I mean, all the scenes were shot well. I mean, a lot of this movie was shot very well, but it just had me in those scenes longing to get back to Asgard. I was entertained throughout this whole movie. I mean, I was engaged. The action is spectacular. Better than the first one by a mile. And as it seems with these Marvel movies, you're getting quite a number of really good actors in there. And in this one, no different. We get a lot of people from the first one again, of course. Tom Hiddleston upstages Chris Hemsworth, and just every scene that he was in, I was interested even more in what was going on. Thor himself, though, doesn't really hold up the movie as much as you would think. He's kind of less interesting in this one than he was in the first Thor. Natalie Portman didn't do much in this movie, but she's so fucking hot. Yeah, they pick up 2 years after they met, and the romance in this movie is pretty much absent. It's completely forgotten about. Yeah, there's a little there, but it's nothing really more than infatuation or just, it's like fluffy stuff. Really, they don't even have much chemistry in the scenes that they are together. That was a key element that I thought was missing. That shit isn't boring if it's not done in a sappy way like in the Star Wars prequels. In fact, that's something that needs to be done more in these movies, I think. You need to have a romantic interest in there, and we really haven't gotten much of that in these other movies. It's just barely there. It's like, I don't feel it as much. You need to inject more love into these movies, I think. I think that's something that was like always in the comics, and maybe not with, I don't know much about Thor in the comics, but I'm certain, there was a lot of love between Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson in the comics, and there was, Bruce Wayne had his love interest in the comics, and it wasn't just surface level stuff. I think that's something that needs to be touched on more in these movies to give them more heart. Make the women more dimensional, because just calling her a scientist and presenting her with this infatuation is not really doing her character any favors. That's just kind of a side comment that could go for a lot of these Marvel movies, but just thought I'd get that out there. Also, remember Thor's friends from the first movie, including Sif? They're kind of barely there. Just to let you know before I go on, I'm going to discuss more flaws with the movie, but I know it sounds like I'm kind of bashing it. I still really enjoyed the movie, just let me continue. The elves in this movie were fantastic looking. I mean, the costume design and the makeup, and I guess the CG maybe in some cases, really good. The lead elf, the main villain of the movie, Malekith, he looks badass. He looks cool. But he's two-dimensional. I remember not really seeing him in the trailers or the TV spots, and then when I saw the poster, I was like, cool, who's that? And, you know, it adds up now, because he wasn't really that dimensional in the movie. He was just kind of flat. There wasn't much going on with that villain. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, like, the villain is, like, probably one of the most important things. Like, he's just as important as the hero, and we really haven't gotten that many strong villains so far, actually. I think the strongest we ever came... That's a weird way to say it. The closest we ever got to a strong villain was Loki in the Avengers. And maybe Obadiah Stane in Iron Man. Otherwise, that has been a little lacking. These movies, they're not meant to be disposable. They're supposed to be fun, but you want to keep revisiting them, you know? They don't want to just, you know, throw away a Friday night and just, you know, like, go out to see in the theater. I mean, I love the superhero genre, and I just want to see more depth to these movies. I mean, obviously I'm all in for the action and stuff, but I'm just saying, you know, you can't just give it a pass because it's a Marvel movie or a superhero movie. I mean, you gotta critique it a little bit if it's necessary. I'm sure I'll get people, like, disliking my video or, you know, like, writing comments that are negative, but I don't know. I'm just being honest. And again, I gotta stress, I really did enjoy the movie. I'm just discussing the obvious problems that it had for me. I appreciated that Thor: The Dark World was actually darker in tone than the first movie, and, you know, I mean, after the events of the Avengers, shit gets serious, so, like, I think that's appropriate. And I think more of these movies should, you know, it's a good direction. I think these should get darker and more serious. I mean, even if it's just for half the movie, because, I don't know, I think it makes it more interesting, gives it more depth, it raises the stakes a little bit, which, again, you kind of need. The stakes don't need to be, I mean, they need to be high, but not like end of the world high, you know, they don't always need to be that, because that can become kind of repetitive and boring, but, you know, just make it more grounded, more personal, add more suspense to it. I mean, just, you know, make it more intimate. We need better written stories and more developed characters, because, I mean, as much as I enjoyed Thor: The Dark World, and I had a blast watching this movie in the theater, I mean, honestly, it was incredible. It was a really fun time. Maybe even, I'm not sure how it compares to the first. There's things I like about each one more than the other, but I think on my first viewing, I definitely enjoyed this more than the first movie. So there are things that it took in the right direction. As much as I enjoyed it, it has problems with the story and with the characters. Anyway, regardless of its flaws, which are significant enough to mention, Thor: The Dark World was just, I mean, obviously, it's Thor, it's Marvel. It was a blast. It was a fun time in the theater. I was entertained from beginning to end. I was very impressed with the visual quality, and I was attached to these characters enough from the previous films to enjoy it. I would buy this movie on Blu-ray. I'm not just saying that in a completist way, because like, for these movies in particular, I just, you know, I want to have all the Marvel movies. But I could see myself easily watching this again and again. With that, go see it. I'm sure you're already planning on it, regardless of what I say, so if you wanted to get another opinion of it for some reason, you know, that's what I thought. So thank you for watching my review of Thor: The Dark World. I look forward to a Thor 3. Marvel's awesome. Get out of here.